kind of talk and dig a little bit deeper. But what also I think is exciting is our topic today. Our topic is not just about travel. We're going to be talking about, the idea of not just exploring the world, but being able to explore nooks and crannies here in the US, but doing it with a vegan approach, doing it from a veg lens. And what I think is really exciting for a lot of people is when you think about travel, there's a couple of different travels. There's a couple of different, like, I guess, camps you could say that travels in, where you're going on these big, elaborate, maybe more like luxury style of trips. And then there's also this kind of travel that's a little more intimate, going in small groups, getting to know your fellow travelers, and having a slightly different experience kind of in that more intimate space. And I think what's exciting about today's guest and what we're going to be talking about is that more intimate travel experience, what it's like to have almost in a sense like a tour guide where someone is walking you through the area, getting to know it. So you're not just there grabbing the postcard and sending that home, but you're actually learning the background, the details, and in many cases, doing some really great fun activities. So I don't want to get into all the details yet. We're going to dive into that in today's interview, but I just want to get everyone fired up, whether you're thinking about traveling, whether you love to travel, whether you feel like it's time to get back into it, because I know post-pandemic, some of us haven't gotten back into that traveling regimen yet. That I think today's podcast is going to speak to you. It's going to really maybe ignite kind of a flame in you to say, maybe it's time for me to do some traveling soon. All right. So first off, let me say hello to my guest. Kim, it is wonderful, wonderful to have you here today.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Really glad to be here.
All right. And let's give everyone a little background. Let's give them a little background about where you are today, because I think you have a very unique story. The travel industry and really hospitality across the board was heavily impacted when it came to COVID and all of that. So a lot of businesses struggled to kind of get back on that growth trajectory. And it's so exciting to hear where you are today, where you have about 40% of people, coming back on your trips. It's so exciting to hear today where, you know what I mean, you sold out your trips for 2024. Like, that is the success story that we all dream of hearing. But, you had to work your way back. You had to find your way there. And what I'm hoping we can share with people today is not only how you got started, but how you moved back into that growth trajectory. Because I think for people who are running their own businesses, they're still hoping out there, and maybe you can help them keep going. And also, I think for people out there, it's wonderful to hear that businesses like yours are actually starting to thrive and find their footing post-pandemic. So, all right, I asked a lot of questions in that. Let me back up. Let's go to the beginning. Let's go all the way back when you started the business and give people a little bit of a foundation of what you started and why you started your business.
Sure. So I became vegan in 2015, but I had been vegetarian for 30 years before that. And I had always loved to travel on my own, but I never took a group tour because I figured that, if I was on a group tour and all the restaurants were chosen ahead of time, that I would be told, well, here's the one vegan option. And I didn't want to be on any tours that were exploiting animals in any way. So I just decided to start my own business. I really just thought it was going to be something part-time or a side gig, because I had a job that I liked a lot and I had 4 weeks vacation. So I thought, well, I'll just like take people on tours instead of traveling by myself. And then, well, just because of the way the timing worked out, this position I had been at for almost 20 years, I decided to leave because the office was moving from Boston to New York, and I was offered a position in New York, and I didn't want to move there at that time. So I was given a really good severance package. I feel so fortunate because I was able to live on that money for 2 years while I was getting my business going. So I would really recommend that to someone. If you can start part-time while you still have a full-time salary, that's a really good way to do it. And I had just one tour the first year in 2016, and it was a local one, just going from Boston to New York. And then in 2017, I also had just one tour. I was still working for my previous employer then. And then in 2018, I think I had maybe 5 tours, and really never anticipated having more than 10 in a year. But this year we've had 13 on our schedule. Every spot is taken. I am so grateful for that. And even though we will never have more than 12 people or so on our tours, the group size has gotten larger. So when I was the first few years, our groups were probably maybe just 6 people. And now they're usually 10 to 12, and oftentimes we have to turn people away to keep it at that number. So that's how everything started. I would say that we've been growing about 50% a year, which so already the company is already bigger than I ever anticipated.
That is a wonderful place to be. And it's a wonderful story of how you built it over time. I think, some of us can get a little impatient when we start our businesses. We kind of feel like it's got to be big and we're going to be on the cover of a magazine in 2 months. You read these stories of you know, going viral and all that. But I really think there's something to be said about building a strong, stable business and building it over time so that you can deliver the quality of experience consistently. Because we've all known companies that expanded too fast and the experience got a little bit rocky. So I really want to commend you for taking that time and for building something strong that today, like you said, selling out all of your tours in 2024. And it's only May, I think is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. So if we go back a little bit again in time, but maybe not as far back as when you started, when you think about the challenges during, the pandemic, when you think about where you are today, what would you kind of attribute to what has allowed you to get where you are today? What are some of those either major moves, maybe major pivots, or things that you did that helped you get to where you are today? And you can throw in some things that maybe didn't work out the way you expected as well. They don't have to be all the rosy pictures, but I'm curious if you'd be willing to kind of share with us some of that insight.
Definitely. So in 2020 and 2021, I had 16 tours planned, and many of them were sold out, and they were all canceled except for one, which was at the end of 2021, when it was starting to be feasible to travel again with a lot of precautions. And I think one of the only reasons really I was able to make it through COVID was that my business had no debt going into COVID. And unlike most of the really large travel companies and tour operators, which just gave vouchers, and sometimes even vouchers with an expiration date to their clients whose tours had to be canceled, I refunded every last dollar to my clients. So, yeah, I was still kind of small then, but I remember it was about $60,000 in refunds. And I think I was down to about $1,000 in my business account. And then luckily, even though I had to wait a little while, I was able to get unemployment. Normally it would have been difficult because self-employed people
Mhm.
usually were not eligible for unemployment, and the state I live in wasn't really sure how to get that going, and so I had to wait several months. But at least when I finally received the funds, I got all the back pay. And I also received 2 loans and 2 grants. So the grants didn't have to be paid back. That was great. The loans have a low interest rate. And yeah, I just remember thinking about having to get another job possibly. And I have to admit, I was really spoiled because I had then been my own boss for a few years, and I really couldn't imagine having a time schedule that I would have to adhere to for an employer. And I but I never really went as far as to get another job because I was still running my business basically and never knowing when travel was going to come back. So I was still
Yeah.
having to plan all these tours and be ready to go and still keep up all of the expenses like the website and my liability insurance and everything like that. So um luckily, things just really came back after COVID, even more so than before. And one of the best things that happened for me because of the pandemic was that I met my chef partner. Um, I had taken, he's a PCRM food for life instructor, and I had taken an online course from him. I'm in North Carolina, he's in the Chicago area, and we never would have met in person, but he pivoted his business from in-person meetings to online classes. And then we spoke, and I saw that he was looking for something new to do in his retirement, and he loves to travel. And so I had some requests for not tours where people are not able to eat oil. So that means it's impossible to eat out then. And so I knew that my European tours would not work for them, but we had this idea to do tours near the national parks where not only would people that follow that type of diet be able to benefit from these tours, but it's really, really difficult to find vegan, let alone healthy food near the national parks.
Yeah.
So we're doing 3 of those tours together every year. And I never had any intention of doing tours in the US. My specialty was Europe. Um, but these tours were selling out very quickly, and we have a lot of clients that come on 2 or 3 of those tours every year. And we have a lot of people coming that don't eat that way at home, but they just love the idea of going on a vegan tour to the national parks. So that was a really huge pivot and basically became a subsidiary of my business.
I love stories like that because I think when we build our businesses, when we start our businesses, we have the idea, this is what our business will be. And we don't realize sometimes how much our business will expand from opportunities we originally didn't even have kind of maybe even on the table. And I think it's such a beautiful thing when, those opportunities present themselves, and we as business owners kind of take that leap. I think for some people, they're like, oh, I don't want to change. I don't want to do this. And they kind of say, no, 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 I'm only going to do what I originally said. But I think it's so important to try to test and do other things. Plus, like you said, it created a whole new opportunity for you because now having trips by the national parks, now you have an option that you didn't have before. So I love partnerships, and I love it when an idea comes out in the business that allows you to really expand into areas that maybe hadn't even thought of before. Plus, while we were talking a little bit before, we had a little bit of fun before we started this interview, the idea that having a partner sometimes can help you expand your business. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this because when we run our businesses at times, we start off as that solopreneur, that one person. So in your case, maybe doing the tours, you're the only person that someone interacts with. But as a business expands, it's so wonderful when other people are involved, not only because it brings in other perspective and ideas, but brings in other experiences and allows your business to be successful without you being everywhere. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that feeling of expanding, how comfortable you were in the beginning. Were you a little bit nervous when you were doing it? Or did you kind of just say, let's go do it, and it just jumped in with both feet?
Well, what's really funny is that Mark, my chef partner, and I actually never met in person until 2 days before the first tour that we were doing together was starting. And This was pretty funny. My mother said to me, "Have you ever tasted his food yet?" I said, "Well, actually, no, but I trust him." So it turned out absolutely fine. And he has become to me like the brother that I never had.
Mm.
And he's very open to helping me with other aspects of my business. And for the first time, I was able to bounce ideas off of someone else. And when we're on the actual tours, I would say he's much more outgoing than I am, and he's fantastic with our guests and is not just cooking for them, but also teaching them if they're interested in learning how to cook whole food, plant-based, no oil. And there's also things that he really loves to do that I hate to do, like the finances for those trips. So he's very much into spreadsheets, and I've never been into that. I really just want to plan the tours. And so we just work so well together. And in addition to Mark, I now have 3 people helping me lead tours. And because honestly, I really just thought this would be something I would do for the last 10 years of my working career. And I never anticipated it being more than just me. But I've had one guide that's been leading 2 or 3 tours for me every year since the beginning. And then I had another young woman approach me about a year and a half ago. Uh, she knew about me from a personal relationship. And so she just sent me her resume out of the blue. And I thought it was great. And I told her, oh, I would hire you on the spot if I could, but I don't think I'll be ready for anyone for quite a while. And then only about 6 months went by, and I realized that I could really use her help. And somehow then in just a 1 month period, I ended up hiring 2 assistants. And
Wow.
because I kind of had one as a backup, and then I ended up hiring both of them. And so I was really at capacity, but the second assistant said, well, what about if, I don't just lead the tours for you, but I actually do the organizing and the planning as well. And I said, yeah, that would be fabulous. And then the first young woman that had approached me, she works as a freelance tour guide for REI. So she's uh, been doing hiking tours in the backcountry for quite some time. And she was a much better fit for the tours that we're doing in the national parks, because I'm not a hiker, and I, as I said, really preferred the tours that were in Europe. So we just finished the first tour with her last week, and she and I have not met in person yet. It's just been on the phone. But my chef partner told me she is top notch, one of the best people he's ever worked with in 45 years of his career.
Wow.
And many of the clients that were on this trip emailed me and said how great she was. And about half of them have now expressed interest for the next 2 tours that she's going to be leading. So, that was another kind of pivot, because I never anticipated doing hiking tours. And now she's always even going to be doing some tours on her own that don't involve our chef partner. And so she's just setting them up in areas that she's very familiar with, mostly in California where she lives. And yeah, she's going to be doing the cooking or arranging for the meals, just like she does on her REI tours. And that will be almost like another subsidiary of the business. So it was a little scary at first to think about bringing other people on, but it's opened so many other doors now.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's really amazing that not only have you been able to find great people, but your willingness to kind of explore and live in this kind of new dynamic or world that we're in where, as, business owners, and we're bringing people on, back in the day, as I'm going to show my age, you always like met people in person, looked at them eye to eye, all that kind of, old school, I guess they would say, kind of approach, and how now we can work with people, bring people on our teams, partner with people that we've never met in person.
Mm-hmm.
People that we may even work with for years. I have a lot of people on my team I've worked with for years, and we never have met. I had one person on my team that worked with me for almost 8 years, and we met, let's say, in year like 6 after working with each other. So it is amazing how like the world has turned. And I think that can be a huge asset for a lot of us that are running businesses, by opening ourselves up to the idea that people can help our business expand by working with people who are in different regions, different locations, and can bring in sometimes those ideas, or like in your case, the opportunity for hiking tours,
Right.
like this person brought in for you.
Yeah, and she's so great with office things as well. I mean, that's what really surprises me. So just things that I'm not very good at, like creating graphics or something, it's nothing for her. So it wasn't just the actual skill set of leading a tour, but just she has fantastic administrative skills as well.
That is great, great, great news. So let's do this. I want to make sure if people are listening to us, if people are getting excited, if people are like, oh, wait a minute, I want to check out one of these tours, whether it's, for food, whether it's for hiking, whether it's national parks, or, even they want to go overseas. What is the best way for them to find out what's available? Let's give them the website, let's give them
Mhm.
social media. If you do email, let's give them all the contact information and all the places and ways they can get in touch.
Yeah, so our website is vegjauntsandjourneys.com. And like I said, we're completely sold out for this year, but about half of our tours for 2025 are now open for booking. And for the ones that aren't open for booking yet, they're listed on the website with the date and usually the price, and people can express interest in the tour, and then they will be notified a few days before we open it to the general public, because a lot of them do sell out quickly. Um, Facebook and Instagram, also Veg Jaunts and Journeys. And you can also go to our website, and there should be a pop-up box that allows people to just enter their email address for our newsletter, which is sent out maybe once a month or when we have a new tour to announce.
Perfect, perfect. And then when someone's thinking about going on a trip, so whether my folks that are listening that are just like, I want to go on a trip, or if there's some of my entrepreneurs that I've been nudging along and saying, hey, you need to do some getaways because you got to take some breaks. You can't just work all the time. Where do you think they should start? What kind of trip should they consider if they're looking at your website, just so they can get a sense of that? And then also maybe walk them through how a trip works, meaning you book a trip, then what happens next?
Mhm. So I would say our European tours, I mean, we are starting to expand. We have 2 safaris in Africa this year, and we're starting to expand in Asia a little bit. But for someone that really wants to experience supporting local vegan businesses and the vegan food scene, then Europe is definitely the place to start, because it's, except for maybe New York City or Los Angeles, it's much more vegan friendly than any place in the US. And so we have tours to very popular places like Italy and Spain and England, but we're also starting to do more off the beaten path where the vegan scene is really good. So maybe Budapest, Hungary, or Prague, Czech Republic, and some more of Eastern Europe. So basically, when someone signs up for a tour, um, they need to pay a 25% non-refundable deposit, and then the final payment is due about 2.5 months before the tour. The groups are small, like I said, usually just 10 to 12 people. In the 10 to 12 people, we might have 1 or 2 couples, and all the rest are solo travelers. So it's really easy to make friends. The groups are so friendly and congenial, and no one should ever hesitate to come alone. And then one thing that really differentiates us is that our tours are based on, the pricing is based on having your own room if you're traveling on your own. So there's no single supplement. You don't have to pay extra to have your own room. And that's been working out really well. The first couple of years we started, I would say our average age was over 50, but it's definitely moving down now. So we've had everything from age 18 to 83. And I really like that. And just, everyone, for the most part, has the common value of veganism. I'm probably one of the fewer vegan companies where the majority of my clients are vegan. We get a few vegetarians on the tour, and every once in a while, someone might come that just comes along with a traveling partner that happens to be vegan. And obviously, you don't have to be vegan to come on the tour. You just have to eat vegan when you're eating with the group. And all the meals are included. So everything is included except for air. And then I periodically, after someone joins a tour, I periodically send out information to them, like international travel tips and a packing list and how to travel with a group. And so that's been working out really well. I think one thing that my guests would say about me is that I'm extremely hands-on. They're always remarking about how quickly I return their phone calls or their emails. I mean, as long as I'm in town, I get back to someone immediately or within hours. And even if I am traveling, they never have to wait more than 12 hours or so to hear from me. So, I really pride myself on that. And last year we started really getting a lot of travelers booking more than one tour with us every year. So 40% of our bookings are repeat travelers. And it's really exciting now because people are already asking what we have planned for 2026. So
Yes, that's huge. That kind of demand is not only the dream of most of us as entrepreneurs, but it's really exciting because it shows how much people enjoy your trips, but also shows the diversity of what you're offering so that people can go on multiple trips. They don't kind of feel like, well, we have to wait a couple of years before we would do that again.
yeah.
It seems like you really give people the opportunity and the experience to go on multiple trips and truly feel like they're getting different experiences, exploring different areas. And it also sounds like it's within reach for a lot of people to be able to go on multiple trips, which I think is brilliant in your planning.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, one of the most rewarding things is just uh, having all these vegan relationships around the world now. I mean, just, some partners that we're working with every year, like certain hotels or vegan tour guides, and just supporting the same restaurants year after year. It's really exciting.
Oh, that sounds good. I as I'm listening to you, obviously I want to go on a trip. I'm sure as anybody is listening, they're like, okay, it's time. I need to book something. So I'm really excited and hoping that as people have listened to today's episode or listened to this even as a podcast, that they're feeling as inspired and excited as I am. Because like I love to travel, but especially as an entrepreneur, you know, international travel sometimes is a little bit hard for me. I just, it's a little bit hard for me to be away that long.
Mhm.
And also, it's a little bit hard, with the responsibilities that I have, but being able to do something in the US, being able to do something, that kind of has that intimate feel, I think may really appeal to a lot of entrepreneurs because they could, come up with good logic to be able to get away and do it. So I
Mhm.
think your tours are really that accessibility, I think, for people who are not necessarily either retired or have a lot of time on their hands or see themselves as having a lot of time on their hands. I think your target audience can be much greater because you have that opportunity in the US and in Europe when people are ready.
Yeah, like we're starting to do shorter tours now, maybe just 3 days or so in vegan-friendly cities like Philadelphia, or in vegan-friendly areas that have a lot of animal sanctuaries to visit. So, yeah, that's gonna be really fun as well.
Oh, I'm excited. I am excited. So, we spent a lot of time talking. We spent a lot of time giving people background and everything. One thing I always love to kind of end a note on, especially since a lot of our listeners are people who are running businesses, managing businesses, starting businesses, or even planning to do it, is any advice, with being in business, all the years you've been in business, from going through these ups and downs and really getting into a space now where it looks like your business is really thriving at whole new levels. Do you have any advice or recommendations that either you would want to give our audience, or if you could tell your younger self, you would give your younger self that advice? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, if you can start part-time, then that just makes it, so much easier, and you have to be open to changing what you thought your business was going to be, but you also, even if you feel like you really need the business, you shouldn't feel like you have to chase after every single thing. Like, for an example, I have a lot of, say, yoga instructors that want to partner with me on a retreat. And there's just a lot of them. I mean, I have nothing against yoga, but I don't even do yoga. And I just, my focus is European tours and sightseeing. I really don't wanna get into the whole other side of retreats and yoga and meditation. So, even when you feel like, you might need, to do something and do some business, don't to not chase after everything just because somebody gives you that suggestion. If you can't get excited about it, it's really hard then. Um and, yeah, I mean, I think don't be afraid to give up, some control if you
Mm.
are able to find good people, for sure, because, the first few years, I probably worked 70 hours a week, and I was always a 9 to 5 person, but, of course, it's very different when it's your own business. Doesn't really seem like work, but I have to say that after the pandemic, I became really unmotivated because I didn't know if the tours that I was planning would actually go, or if they were gonna be canceled again. So, um, I don't necessarily have the same enthusiasm that I had 6 years ago, but luckily now I have other people to help take things off my plate. I mean, there's no way that I could have, kept up with that schedule of working 70 hours a week, and I feel like, for me at least, I mean, my living expenses aren't that much, and once I reached a certain level of salary, I was really happy to give up some of the profits to other people.
And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? You want to get to a certain level to cover, and obviously, make enough so that, you can live and we can all kind of live comfortably, and then be able to expand from there. I think a lot of people, struggle with that profitability piece. They kind of just, like you said, chase every idea, or they try to do everything and they say, okay, the profits will come later. But I do think it's so important that you understand what your number is as an entrepreneur. What number do you need to get to, so that you understand what will kind of take care of you and then allow you to share those profits, expand, and understand your numbers, because that can give you a level of freedom that, I think a lot of people would really enjoy. And also, you mentioned earlier not having that debt. Um, I don't
Mhm.
think a lot of people realize how many businesses are carrying debt. So therefore, the decisions they have to be very different when you have those debt obligations. And
Mhm.
sometimes that can impact how you share profit and so forth. So I really think you've really kind of created almost like a case study today on, what I mean, how to build a business that not only thrives, not only a business that gives back to the community, not only a business that people love, but how to build kind of a profitable business that can expand beyond, just the original vision, of the founder, in a sense, and expand into a third, a business that flourishes with the support of other people, with, like you said, these other individuals coming in tour guides, and that kind of evolution, and how to do it in a very growth, profitable, and successful way. So I really want to commend you on doing that. I think that is just great. And I really hope that this is inspiring some people who are listening to our podcast or this episode today.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Absolutely. So thank you as always for, us keeping in touch over the years. It's been so great to kind of catch up every now and then. And this has been a wonderful catch up for me. And also thank you for your time today. I really think it's been going to be really helpful for everyone out there. And anyone who's watching, whether you're watching today, whether you're watching this as a replay or listening to this on our podcast, I hope today was not only an inspiration for you, but maybe a way for you to realign your business, maybe a way for you to rethink about your business, and also understand how to set priorities, where to expand, but also where not to try to chase everything down through Kim's advice, which I think all of us sometimes can get tempted to think every idea is a good idea. So I really hope today's session has been one of those aha sessions for many of you who are watching. If you have any questions for our guests, any questions for us, always post them either in the comments or shoot us an email. We'll make sure we get them over to our guest, or if we can answer them ourselves, we will as well. Otherwise, I will see everyone in our next interview. And Kim, thank you again for a wonderful interview and a chance for us to catch up today.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.